Football remembers one of its greatest ever goal scorers.
And in 3 minutes, Greaves had put them one up.
Jimmy Greaves was a record breaker on the pitch, and after he stopped playing, a hugely popular pundit.
He was always in the right place at the right time, and it worked.
But he was also just a personality, and there aren't many of them around anymore.
Also ahead, the government says there's no risk to gas supplies, but retailers tell ITV News of major fallout from huge price rises. The first ever amateur space mission lands safely off the coast of Florida. And what laughs he brought us. Tributes to the Only Fools and Horses actor John Challis, who's passed away at 79.
This is ITV News with Geraint, Vincent.
Good evening. In the eyes of so many who played with him and against him, Jimmy Greaves was simply the best goalscorer they'd ever seen. And the fans who were lucky enough to watch him play for Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham and England adored him. 50 years since Greaves retired from the game, the records he set still stand. In the top tier of English football, no one has ever scored more goals than he did. And if he was brilliant in the box, he wasn't bad on the box either. He went on to become one of Britain's best-loved football pundits. Our sports editor, Steve Scott, reports.
Remembering a football hero ahead of a match between the two clubs he dedicated most of his career to. England and Spurs captain Harry Kane paid his own tribute today, describing Greaves as a true legend. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said he was one of the greats of English football.
And in 3 minutes, Greaves had put them one up.
Jimmy Greaves was a phenomenal goalscorer for both club and country, and in retirement, a larger-than-life character who burst onto the small screen.
Oh, we're a lucky team.
There's Jimmy Greaves.
As a player, his strike rate was unparalleled, particularly for England.
Greaves scored again.
He scored 44 times in 57 games, a better ratio than anyone before or since.
He was definitely the best goal scorer, but he was also just a personality, and there aren't many of them around anymore.
He just used to glide through, not a problem.
He was always in the right place at the right time, and it worked.
He was part of England's 1966 World Cup winning squad, but was injured in the last group game. Geoff Hurst took his place, and despite being fit for the final, Greaves wasn't selected, and his one-time understudy scored a hat-trick. Greaves didn't even get a winner's medal until the rules were changed in 2009, and he was handed one at Downing Street. For clubs Chelsea, AC Milan and Tottenham, his scoring record was prolific too. In Spurs colours, he won the FA Cup twice and the European Cup Winners' Cup. He ended his top-flight career with one season at West Ham United, after which he fought a well-publicised battle with alcoholism.
Good afternoon from Wembley, from Greaves and I.
A magical TV partnership with former Liverpool player Ian St John propelled Greaves to even greater stardom and a whole new audience. He was a natural in the studio, king of the one-liners who never took himself too seriously.
Jimmy Greaves.
In 2015, Greaves suffered a serious stroke, and though he never fully recovered, when he was recognised with an MBE this year, his family said he shed tears of pride. There will be many tears today too, for a man who meant so much to so many.
Well, our sports reporter Chris Scudder is outside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this evening. Chris, just how big a talent was he?
Well, fitting, Geraint, that the two sides where he excelled should play each other today, and perhaps the Spurs could have done with a Jimmy Greaves, the goal scorer, because they've been beaten 3-0 by Chelsea. But as a goal scorer, he was pretty peerless, wasn't he? His records, as Steve was saying there, they stack up against anybody. Perhaps the only one who could compare with him was the great German striker Gerd Müller, who died last month. And he was just simply the best. We've heard that I spoke to a lot of the fans here earlier who were paying tribute. And, you know, his record, nobody scored more goals in the top flight of English football before or since. A flawed character maybe, a little bit of a maverick. George Cohen was, his World Cup winning colleague, said he lacked discipline off the field. He liked to drink, and perhaps that led to his problems later in life. But as a striker, a goal scorer, practically peerless, one of the all-time great football goal scorers. Jimmy Greaves.
Chris, many thanks. The government is insisting there are no threats to gas supplies in the UK this winter. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is continuing talks with energy suppliers today, following a sharp rise in the wholesale price of natural gas. Supermarkets and food manufacturers are warning that the hike has caused a shortage in carbon dioxide, which may limit supplies of meat and fresh produce. Political correspondent Harry Horton reports.
It's used in hospitals for some surgeries. In food, it's needed to stun livestock. In drinks, it adds the fizz. And it's essential to freeze and package groceries. But now, a rise in gas prices has led to a shortage of CO2, with potentially far-reaching consequences. This morning, the government urged calm.
We're not being complacent about this at all, but I think the clear message that I want to give to people is that we do not see risks of supplies right now, and prices are being protected.
UK gas prices have rocketed this year, up more than 300% in the past 6 months. It's prompted the shutdown of 2 fertiliser plants in England, which produce around 60% of the UK's CO2 as a byproduct. One supermarket chain told ITV News it could lead to food shortages within days.
Well, this couldn't really have happened at a worse time, because we've already got a lot of problems in the supply chain which are well documented around drivers and distribution. So adding a problem as key as this is a key part of the food production system. It just further complicates it.
The Business Secretary met with one major CO2 firm today and tonight warned of the pressures facing small energy suppliers.
We're expecting to see some small suppliers get really squeezed by this high price, and therefore there may be some supplier failures. We've already had some this year. So that's where the focus of discussions is, how we make sure the retail sector is sustainable, but also, most importantly, how we make sure customers are supported if their supplier goes bust.
Tomorrow, ministers will hold more talks with the energy industry, seeking to avoid this price increase turning into a much wider crisis. Harry Horton, ITV News.
The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has defended the UK's security pact with the US and Australia despite a growing diplomatic row with France. She said the agreement to develop a new fleet of nuclear-powered submarines for the Australian Navy, which trashes a £30 billion contract the Australians had with France, shows Britain is hard-headed in defence of its interest. Well, that row goes on as the Prime Minister heads to New York on diplomatic manoeuvres. He's trying to encourage countries to do more for the environment ahead of a major conference in Glasgow next month. Well, our US correspondent Emma Murphy is in New York. Emma, what's Boris Johnson hoping to achieve over there?
Well, he'll arrive this evening and start work straight away, trying to encourage other leaders to really make the pace on climate change. He wants to talk about coal, cars, the way that we live our lives going forward, and the way that the politics needs to be done to really maximise the way that we can tackle climate change. He'll also be seeking to increase the number of leaders who might be joining him in Glasgow later this year at the COP event. Now, of course, he will travel later in the week to Washington, where he'll have time to speak with President Biden. No doubt there will be some private celebration on the deal that they've struck with Australia. But there will also be more difficult discussions about Afghanistan, about COVID, about the US-UK border, because, of course, British citizens can still not get into this country because of concerns about the UK COVID situation. The Prime Minister will be pushing all those issues with the President. And, of course, both men will probably be fairly relieved that the French are not going to be at the UNGA this week, so there won't be any awkward bumping into President Macron after the diplomatic spat of the past few days.
OK, Emma Murphy in New York, many thanks. The Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, has walked the cobbles of Coronation Street as part of the G7 Speakers Conference. The parliamentary leaders toured the exterior set of the popular ITV show and got to meet some of the cast members too. The leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, has accused the Prime Minister of being asleep at the wheel in his party conference speech in London. And the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall have taken part in a service at Westminster Abbey to commemorate the 81st anniversary of the Battle of Britain. Happy, healthy, home. A three-word message on social media was how the first all-amateur spacecraft crew announced their safe arrival back on Earth. The SpaceX capsule splashed down at the Atlantic last night, the end of a mission which circled the planet and raised a lot of money for charity. The SpaceX founder, Elon Musk, welcomed them home with a donation of $50 million. Sam Holder was watching.
They had boldly gone where no amateur crew had gone before, spending 3 days in space circling the globe without a professional astronaut on board. Launched by Elon Musk's SpaceX, the entire voyage was fully automated.
Are secure, restraints are tightened, visors are down.
Re-entering with temperatures outside reaching nearly 2,000 degrees Celsius. A giant leap for space travel, ending with a gentle splash in the Atlantic. While in orbit, there were experiments to test the impact of space on non-professionals and a few breathtaking views.
This is the largest window ever flown in space. We can put our head in and fit multiple crew members and see the entire perimeter of the Earth.
Even in space, there was still time for a movie. Mel Brooks's classic space comedy, Spaceballs. The crew were paid for and selected by billionaire Jared Isaacman, likely costing many millions. It may still be prohibitively expensive, but the success of this mission is a milestone in space tourism.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
The trip was also a fundraising mission, the crew hoping to inspire donations to the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, a place that means a lot to one of the crew.
This is such a great shot.
First back on terra firma, medical officer Hayley Arsenault. As a child, she had bone cancer. Her treatment at St. Jude inspired her to work at the hospital.
Lots of waves, thumbs up.
She becomes the first astronaut ever with a prosthetic limb. A poignant end to a remarkable moment in the history of space exploration. Sam Holder, ITV News.
And finally this evening, he brought us one of the best-loved characters in the history of British comedy, and what a laugh he had. The actor John Challis, most famous for his role as Boise in Only Fools and Horses, has passed away at the age of 79. More recently, he was part of the cast of ITV's Benidorm. A statement from his family said he died peacefully in his sleep after a long battle with cancer. Martha Fairley looks back.
As cigar-smoking Boise, John Challis became the nation's favourite second-hand car dealer.
I am here.
For more than 20 years, he played Terence Aubrey Boyce in Only Fools and Horses.
You never said your name was Aubrey. Nor would you if your name was Aubrey.
Taunting Del Boy with his ostentatious ways and his mocking laugh.
All right, Bossy, we've decided you can stay.
Sir David Jason, who'd known him for over 40 years, described him today as a dear friend, a wonderful actor and a gentleman in the true sense of the word.
Come on, kiss him goodbye.
Yeah, bye, Del. See you soon.
For God's sake, the dog, Marlene.
While Sue Holderness, who played his on-screen wife Marlene, paid tribute, saying, "Marlene without Boise, it's unthinkable. John Challis was my partner on screen and stage for 36 years and my beloved friend. R.I.P. darling John, I will miss you every day."
I beg your pardon?
In 2015, he joined the ITV sitcom Benidorm, playing Monty Staines, and recently became an honorary citizen of Serbia, where Only Fools and Horses is still a big hit.
It's called the Trotter Brothers Trying to Park a Three-Wheel Van.
His family said he always loved being Boise, and his great legacy of work will bring pleasure and smiles for many years to come.
Remembering John Challis, whose death was announced today. And that's all for now. I'm back with the late news at 10 o'clock. Until then, have a good evening. Bye-bye.